forbid a Muslim from drinking while standing. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad said, it's mentioned in Sahih Muslim, volume number 3 in the book of drinks, hadith number 5017. The Prophet disapproved drinking while standing. Sahih Muslim, volume number 3, book of drinks, hadith number 5018. The Prophet forbade a person from drinking while he's standing. It's further mentioned in Sahih Muslim, volume number 3, in the book of drinks, hadith number 5020. The Prophet warned from drinking while standing. It's also mentioned in Sahih Muslim, volume number 3, in the book of drinks, hadith number 5022. The beloved Prophet said, none shall drink while standing. So all these hadith that disapprove of a person from drinking while standing. Immediately the next 5 hadith, Sahih Muslim, volume number 3, book of drinks, hadith number 5023 to 5027. The next 5 hadith say that the Prophet drank Zamzam water while standing. And also mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, volume number 2, in the book of Hajj, hadith number 1637. The beloved Prophet Muhammad, it says that he drank Zamzam water while standing. So based on these hadith, all the scholars agree that drinking while sitting is mustahab. And you can stand and drink only when you have Zamzam water. This is what some of the scholars, they have given the ruling. But there are various other hadith which also show that besides Zamzam water, the Prophet even drank the normal water while standing. It's mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, volume number 7, in the book of drinks, hadith number 5615. It says that Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, he walked towards the courtyard of a mosque and he drank water while standing. And he said, I know that many people think it is disapproved, it's makruh, it's disliked for a person to drink while standing, but I've seen the Prophet drink while standing the way I'm drinking now. And further it's mentioned in the hadith of Musnad Ahmad, volume number 1, hadith number 797, which says that Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, that once he was drinking while standing and the people looked at him and they stared at him and he said that, why are you looking at me? I'm doing what the Prophet did. I drink while standing because I've seen the Prophet drink while standing. I also sit while drinking because I've seen the Prophet sit and drink. And it's mentioned in the hadith of Tirmidhi, hadith number 1881, that Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, he said that he, along with the Prophet, in the company of the Prophet, he many a time used to eat while walking and to drink while standing. So based on these hadith, we come to know, the majority of the scholars, they agree that sitting and drinking is mustahab, is the act which is preferred because it is a commandment of the Prophet. As I mentioned earlier, whenever a commandment and action of the Prophet contradicts, the commandment carries more weight because commandment is a normal ruling. An action, maybe there was a requirement, it was urgency, whatever it is. So the mustahab is to sit and drink. But because the Prophet even sometimes stood and drank, standing and drinking is also allowed, but comes in the category of makruh. That is, it is detestable, you will not get any punishment, but you can stand and drink because the Prophet also stood and drank. So as I mentioned earlier that it was a need. Therefore, standing and drinking is not haram. Some people have misconception that standing and drinking is haram. So it's not haram, it's makruh. It's preferred to sit and drink.
So inshallah, brothers and sisters, we'll meet soon after this short break.
It is Ramadan.
Dear brothers and sisters in Islam and humanity, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the show, Ramadan, a date with Dr. Zakir. I'm your host, Yusuf Chambers, and today we're discussing the topic, Ramadan, the month of self-improvement and Islah, part 4. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can you, Doctor, furthermore to your last answer, can you now sum up the etiquettes of drinking?
As far as the sunnah and the etiquettes of drinking are concerned, number 1 is you should say Bismillah before drinking. You should drink with right hand. You should sit while drinking. Number 4, you should drink water in 3 gulps or more, should not have it in 1 gulp, finish it. Number 5, after finishing drinking, you should praise Allah, say Alhamdulillah. Number 6 is that if someone is serving drinks to other people, if there are a group of people or there are guests coming, he should have the last drink. Number 7, he should start serving from the right-hand side. Number 8, a person should not drink from the pitcher. He should pour it into a cup or a glass and then have it. All these are hygienic. Normally when you have from the pitcher, then it's preferable to have it in the glass and leave the complete water clean. And the last is, and the 9th one is, that you should not drink in a gold or a silver vessel. So these are the etiquettes and the sunnah of drinking water.
Jazakallah khair for the answers. And Dr. Zakir, we've arrived at the last question for today in the interview phase, and it's quite a straightforward and simple one. You do hear many Muslims pronounce Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before they eat. Is this a sunnah?
As far as my knowledge goes, I have not heard of any Sahih Hadith. I have not come across any Sahih Hadith, any authentic Hadith in which the Prophet said that before eating you have to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, or the Prophet said Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before eating. In fact, all the Hadith that I know, he only said Bismillah. And even if you read the Hadith of Sahih Bukhari, volume number 7, in the book of foods, Hadith number 5376, the Prophet says to a young boy that before eating, say the name of Allah, say Bismillah, and eat with the right hand and eat what is close to you. Even the Hadith of Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, it's mentioned in Sunan Abu Dawud, volume number 3, in the book of foods, Hadith number 3758. Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the al-Mu'mineen, may Allah be pleased with her, she said that when you eat, you should say Bismillah in the name of Allah. And if you forget to say Bismillah before eating, then whenever you remember, say Bismillah wa awwalu wa akhiru, which means that in the name of Allah in the beginning and in the name of Allah towards the end. So this is the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. But unfortunately, people, because of lack of knowledge, they say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. And when I reminded one of the brothers that, Bismillah is right, authentic, what's the harm? Bismillah ar-Rahman is more. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Isn't it better than Bismillah? I said, if the Prophet didn't say it, then do you think you want to improve on the Prophet? So then I asked him, the same logic if I use when I'm slaughtering the animal, when you're sacrificing the animal, you say Bismillah. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. You can't say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Imagine you're slaughtering an animal and then saying in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. So unfortunately, Muslims, because of lack of knowledge, instead of following the Quran, the Sahih Hadith, they try and use their own logic and they try and improve, which is totally wrong. We should follow what Allah and His Rasul have said.
Jazakallah khair. And I can't deny any of the answers at all. The next question is, what is the Islamic dress code for men and women Islam? Quite a long question.
As far as the Islamic dress code is concerned, there are a few guidelines given in the Quran as well as the Hadith. Allah first speaks about the hijab for the male, then for the female in the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 30, say to the believing man that he should lower his gaze and guard his modesty. That means whenever a man looks at a woman, any brazen thought comes, he should lower his gaze. Once there was a person, a Muslim, staring at a girl for a long time. I told him, brother, what are you doing? It's haram in Islam. So he said, our beloved Prophet said, the first glance is forgiven, the second is prohibited. I have not completed half my glance. That does not mean you can look at a girl for 10 minutes without blinking and saying, I have not completed my glance. Later on comes the dress code. The next verse speaks about the hijab for the woman. It's mentioned in Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 31. Say to the believing woman that she should lower her gaze and guard her modesty, and display not a beauty except what appears ordinarily of, and to draw a head covering over the bosom, and display not a beauty except to her husband, her son, and a big list of mahram, the close relatives who she can't marry is given. Basically, there are 6 criteria for the hijab for the man and woman. The first is the extent, which for the man, it's from the navel to the knee. For the woman, the complete body should be covered. The only part that can be seen are the face and the hands up to the wrist. There are some scholars who say that even this should be covered. The remaining 5 criteria are the same for the man and the